At this point, the American flag is practically a fucking hate symbol with how hard it's been appropriated by the Republicans. You know, it's basically like the Republican symbol, um, that that we all acknowledge is the Republican symbol. Draping yourself in the flag has always been the easiest. Has always been the easiest way to avoid criticism for your actions. You know, if you couch something in fervent nationalism, you can get away with pretty much anything. It's pretty easy, frankly. You know. And they love that shit. They do.
So I like Vaush, and I agree with most of the stuff that he advocates for, but I don't believe that you should be discouraged from wearing the American flag. I know that when I see somebody wearing an American flag, I usually think they're probably a Republican or a Trump supporter, but I don't think that we should think of it as being a symbol for them, because it's always been used as a symbol to unite our country. Even just during the Obama years or before that, if someone was wearing an American flag, you wouldn't think that they were a Trump supporter or a Republican. Definitely wouldn't think they were a Trump supporter back then, but I think we could use it as a tool to unite each other. And because Republicans and Democrats are never going to agree on policies. Of course, I'm for abolishing the two-party system. I think it's terrible. There's no way we can get stuff passed because it's just, you can't work together on issues. But I know that symbols and stuff like that is used to categorize and control people. But we are the United States, and that's our flag. And I believe that just disliking people who wear it or just refusing to wear it or highly wearing it just promotes divisiveness. I see it as a tool to unite people.
I am very comfortable in saying, following all of this, that Krystall Ball is either a Nazi or Nazi sympathetic, or at the very least is so blinded by a pursuit of populism, that she doesn't give a fuck about anything else. She doesn't give a shit about anything else. I don't know, but judging from the fact that she stole nearly $200,000 from a PAC for her salary when she already makes a fuck ton of money from other sources, I think she's just a goddamn grifter. And I want this known. And I'm actually, just this fucking once, I am putting out a call to action, okay? I am putting out a call to action for all of you, okay? Krystall Ball is an enemy to our movement. I don't know what exactly Krystall Ball believes, but I know what she does. And from now on, in every engagement, in every interaction, every time she comes up, every time you're discussing her, every time you refer to her, every time it's relevant, you will express with the deepest sympathy how you feel about Krystall Ball. That's what I want you to do. Because the fact that people are treating this woman and her little fucking co-host as some sort of legitimate pro-populist blow against the corporate establishment, as opposed to what it really is disgusting to me. And what it really is nothing more than a Trojan horse to enable and propagate far-right populism, as represented by the co-host, as represented by Andy Ngo, at the expense of leftists, at the expense of people of color, at the expense of every other minority who would live under the boot of a world brought about by Andy Ngo and his fascist thugs and the Nazis he provides kill lists to.
So Andy Ngo was on Rising, and Vaush was upset because they just talked about how he was beat up by Antifa, and they didn't really dig into his past. And of course, he does have a bias in the situation against Antifa because he's promoted far right-wing nationalist figures before. But I follow Andy Ngo on Twitter, and I follow him for just the real-life video footage that he provides of Antifa, because they are real life things being done by Antifa, such as blocking traffic, or the video of that dude getting beat up in Portland by Marquise Love, and that one guy got his teeth punched out. The black guy was walking, he got his front two teeth punched out. It was not too long ago. So you should condemn Antifa, and I don't blame them for having Andy Ngo on here and not knowing his full past, because they probably know him as just like a journalist who captures Antifa footage on the ground. Though, of course, if it would be better to go that extra step and to review someone's past deeply before having them on. But I don't think it is very relevant in this situation. And he sees them as a Trojan horse because Sagar and Jetty's a Republican, Krystall Ball's a left-wing person. But I believe when I watch the show, Sagar and Jetty is not convincing me to become a Republican. I feel like once you are if you're a Republican and you hear like a common sense a person like, I feel like David Pakman explains liberal policy, leftist policies great. Once you are just following someone like Paul Joseph Watson or Mark Dice, all these people who just talk out of their ass, and then you hear from a point of view and you actually understand it and you come to that side, you're not going to go back to right wing. You're not going to turn on the Rising, hoping to see Krystall Ball talk about some topic, and then Sagar hops in and starts saying some stuff. You're not going to go to his side after hearing his explanation, because you know critical thinking skills once you've become a leftist who is able to actually rationalize their ideas well.
So just let it be known, all right? Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kulinski stan her? Yep, because Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kulinski are low IQ populists who don't know anything about politics and don't actually have any principles, but they'll side with anyone who sounds sufficiently anti-corporate. That's all these people have. If somebody walks up and says that they don't trust corporations, that's all it takes for people like Jimmy and Kyle to run up to them and start sucking their cock. All right? That's true. It's just true. They have no principles. They just don't. Kyle used to stand Sargon. Wouldn't surprise me. Has it really been confirmed that Andy No sent a kill list to Atomwaffen? I'm not entirely sure. Probably not, but it's a fun thing to say. And I don't really care. He openly works with Nazis. I mean, it's not exactly a completely unwarranted meme.
So in the end there, he promotes Andy No's giving a kill list to somebody as if it's actually like 100% verified. He promoted it as that, and then at the end he says he doesn't know. You really shouldn't be promoting stuff like that if you don't know, because that hurts the credibility of your legit arguments. And then he says Kyle Kulinski and Jimmy Dore stan Krystall Ball, because anyone who pretends they're anti-corporations, they'll just both start sucking their dick right away. Anti-corporations is a legit issue, same as anti-fascism. I know that Vaush is always constantly fascist this, and Donald Trump has governed as an authoritarian figure. There's no doubt about it, but there's many different issues. How do you think that we've got this authoritarian government? Because the citizens' lives have been disrupted, and people are so poor and uneducated because the politicians don't work for us. They work for corporations, and they want to keep people uneducated so they can just have compliant workers. So they work together. Anti-corporation, anti-fascist work together. So I don't see why he's constantly bagging on them for that. So later on, Kyle Kulinski, he obviously sees this video and he makes a rebuttal to it, and then Vaush makes a rebuttal to that. So let's jump to that.
So here's an example of a right-wing populist. You ready? And there are many of them in terms of regular people all around the country. Not the leadership, who I agree are mostly frauds. There are plenty of right-wing populists all around the country. So what's a right-wing populist? A right-winger, somebody who describes themselves as a right-winger, and they're in favor of unions. They're in favor of stopping these terrible trade deals that outsource jobs and maybe reversing some of those trade deals.
Okay, this is another thing. Keep in mind that Kyle Kulinski is an economic protectionist, which means that he has dumb fuck ideas when it comes to economics, okay? But I'm not going to get to that now.
They're in favor of a living wage. They're in favor of Medicare for all. But they happen to disagree with us on the issue of affirmative action, on the issue of immigration, on the issue of abortion. That's somebody who I would call a right-wing populist. And that, my friend, is a significant chunk of the American population.
You just described the Nazi Party. You realize the Nazis also implemented social welfare programs, also implemented healthcare programs, you literally just described not for minorities? Yeah, of course not for minorities. Do you really think the conservatives in this country who want there to be a better medical care system would also pay for it to be subsidized in African American communities? Do you really think they would allow it for immigrant groups? No, of course not. The problem with these fascist groups is they're usually not particularly honest about the fact that they only want social policies for a specific demographic of people. Pretty sure the Nazis were not for unions? No, but they pushed for them. Nazis claimed that the working class in Nazi Germany was being disempowered by the financing of the global corporate elite, and that one of the ways they needed to be empowered was through unionization. Now, the Nazi Party did have a national union, worked through, that was done by the Nazi Party, like it was a Nazi union basically, but they did operate off of that rhetoric. Do you really think that all the like Republicans in this country, all these former Rust Belt, like good old boys, they just want the steel jobs back? Do you really think these people who have been voting for Republicans for years, would actually vote in somebody who would be interested in perpetuating workers' rights?
All the people that Kyle Kulinski described there, they all seem like sensible people who just disagree with the left-wing propositions. Then they're not going to vote left. They're going to vote someone like Trump, who's better on abortion, Obama deported more people than Trump did, but Trump talks tough on it, and people don't really listen. People don't really look into stuff. They just listen. So, if someone came along and they were claimed to be Republican and were good and on the issues, and we're just, because someone could be Republican that's good on the issues that I'd want to vote for, even though I don't consider myself one. But I don't think the people have malicious intent towards other people, so calling them Nazis it's not helpful.
Then why didn't Bernie Sanders reach out to these people? And a follow-up question: if you hate immigrants so much that the presence of immigrants to you is worse than whatever conceivable benefit you could get from all the social welfare programs that Bernie Sanders was promising, are you really in favor of workers' rights?
So Bernie did reach out to these people. He campaigned in the Rust Belt states, and his second question was, if you really hate immigrants so much that you're willing to vote for somebody who has strong rhetoric against immigrants rather than someone who promotes welfare policies such as Bernie, I think that if Bernie was running for president, we wouldn't have such a close race. I think Bernie would have gotten a lot of outreach from the right-wing people because he promotes the right ideas. He's made Medicare for all popular, even among Republicans, as a left-wing person. I feel like just this divisiveness of the parties is the problem. And I think people realize that Bernie isn't so much a Democrat. He's always called himself an independent, and he's always advocated for policies without getting so caught up in the rhetoric. And I think people can see immigration as an issue without being labeled a hateful person or who just doesn't want other people to have good things. When in the Democratic debates, the first one, they said who would let illegal immigrants get health care or something. I don't know what it was, but everybody raised their hands. I might find a clip just so I can say that, or include that with better context, because I'm not exactly sure what it was, but it was ridiculous to me, at least. I know that you think people in Arizona or New Mexico or places along the border are just going to be perfectly fine with voting with somebody like that. There's a lot of issues that comes with illegal immigration.
And then they pretend right-leaning people have solutions to this, and then Sauger goes off on some conspiracy bullshit for 5 minutes. They don't do that. That's not how the show works. You can't just putting a left-leaning person and a right-leaning person together in the same studio does not guarantee an equal degree of transmissibility of political opinions. The pipeline does not always flow both ways. The structure of the show which is, by the way, produced by a Republican on a platform called The Hill, which is, by the way, run by one of Trump's close personal friends, believe it or not, might be designed in such a way to push people to the right. Unbelievably, unless you think they would finance a show for the explicit purpose of pulling people away from their political allies.
Or maybe it's a good thing that we have a left-wing voice on a right-wing publication.
See, that's the thing that these guys never acknowledge, never talk about, and it drives me crazy. There's all this talk about a gateway. Oh, it's a gateway to the far right. That's what this is serving as, gateway to the far right. If there's a gateway into something, you also understand there's a gateway out, correct? Correct?
No! What the fuck? No, that's not how it works. Oh yeah, dude, 100%. Oh yeah, when you move from Thunderfoot to Sargon of Akkad to Stefan Molyneux, it actually goes the other way. Lots of people go from Stefan Molyneux to Sargon of Akkad to Thunderfoot. Yeah, there are tons of people who started watching neo-Nazis and came out of it being fans of Anita Sarkeesian. That's definitely how it works. No!
So you're saying perfectly good, reasonable left-wing people can just start watching something like Rising, follow Sagar and Jetty, and then follow the pipeline all the way into becoming a Nazi. but it would be impossible for it to go the other way, for someone who is a Nazi to come back to believing in rational things. That's not even a logical argument. Of course it can go both ways, depending on, what factors are influencing them to go which way.
He's literally like ignoring the way the alt-right pipeline works. Do you know what a current is? Do you think that if you have a pipe full of water, the water just flows in both directions? Here's a hint. If you go into your bathroom and you take a wrench and knock out one of the pipes underneath your sink, it should be in the cabinet, you will notice the water in it only flowed one way. The water didn't go the water won't come in from both sides in both directions. There's a current. It goes in one direction.
He is right that water does only flow one way in the pipes to your home, but discussion about ideas can influence whoever is having the discussion, both sides.
Correct? So if somebody's willing to say, hey, we agree that outsourcing jobs is bad. Oh, look, they're getting along on the issue. Let me see what else this person has to say who's on the left, while I, as a right-winger, watch the show.
You ready for my hot take? Outsourcing jobs is not necessarily a bad thing at all. I think the American economy is robust, and we are very, 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 very capable of forming a strong domestic economy based off the service sector work that we can only do within our own country for people of our own country.
Outsourcing jobs is almost always bad. It can be good if you're outsourcing jobs to Mexico and, giving people there who wouldn't have the opportunity to get a decent job, give them a job and pay them something better than slave wages. That's good, but that's not how it works. Every time we outsource a job, it's to India or China just so they can make it cheaper because we can pay them like nothing. And then Vaush says we can just tax those companies more and then get social welfare programs. Well, what about the other countries? They're still going to be working like slaves, and they don't have social welfare programs. Just because we have the corporations that are based here in the United States that we can tax off of that labor to provide social welfare programs, that's not how it should work. I would rather have more people have a greater amount of money that we could tax at a similar rate, and then just get social welfare programs through that. Outsourcing is not a good thing. There is instances where it could be. Maybe you're from another country and you want to provide jobs to that country, and you're a responsible businessman who's not just getting stuff mass produced in other countries, then that's a good thing. But also, like the iPhone thing, we don't need an iPhone every year. We buy one like every other year, like iPhone 11, 12, we just keep going. Just buy the iPhone that costs more and just take care of it. I don't know.
And what's more, engaging in the sort of neoliberal globalized trade that these people rail against, and I rail against, but for different reasons, gives us an opportunity to diversify the strengths of our economy, invest in other nations, build diplomatic relations with countries who will one day be powerhouses equivalent to us, and in the long run facilitate a much better economy. Do you think that, the American economy would be fixed if, every American consumer had to pay twice as much for a new car, but we brought all the factories back? Do you think that'd be better? Woo, 30,000 people in the Rust Belt got their jobs back. Woo! Now, of course, even for those people, wages do not keep up with productivity because that hasn't happened to any other industry, and now everything's going to be more expensive because these workers are being paid more, which means that the corporations are going to have to sell at a higher price, which means that people in America are more likely to buy foreign cars because those foreign companies are outsourcing, which means that we're going to have to introduce tariffs on foreign products. Basically, any product that we, for some economic reason, bring back to this country, we're going to have to implement tariffs on the corollary, the stuff that comes in from other countries, which means that, hey, all that shit you guys like buying that comes from Japan and Germany, fucking sorry, that shit's gonna cost twice as much. Yeah, you liked your iPhones being 1,000, how about them being 2,000? But it's okay, guys, we brought back these antiquated dying jobs that are going to be automated in 15 years anyway. That's gonna, fucking, that was worth it.
We're not just going to automate all the jobs away in 15 years. I've worked in a few factories. I've worked making actual electronic motherboards for vehicles for Toyota, and I've worked in a factory where we made the rubber that made tires for Continental tires. and I've worked as a landscaper, I've worked at KFC, I've worked as a detailer. You can't, there's not just going to be jobs audited. Of course, you know, KFC, detailer, landscape, those are jobs you can't outsource. But like factory work, these jobs are actually so specific that there's no way in 15 years that we're even going to automate away these jobs. All the jobs that we outsource, there's automation, of course, is going to cut away some jobs in them, but it's not just going to just get rid of a large portion of the people that work in these factories. And of course, what he said about tariffs is true. If we did stop outsourcing and other countries would like to sell their stuff to us, then we would have to put tariffs on their stuff. We want to make sure that people make a living wage or $15 an hour, but then we would be willing to just, you know, enjoy the tax revenue and the amenities of the companies that outsource and pay their people like nothing. If we're going to bring in products from other countries, I'm saying, you know what, we might have to put tariffs on them if they're not paying their workers a living wage. So, I don't know.
Economics is complicated. People have a tendency to blame the wrong things for problems. In a capitalist economy, which is an economy that we live in, whether we like it or not, really sorry, that's the one we live in, labor and capital need to flow freely across borders in order for us to maximize profits. Now, there are two things that we can do for that, okay? We can either hurt the planet and the entire economy of our country by obfuscating that process and trying to restrain the transmission of labor and capital, or we cannot do that and instead use all of our extra money to invest in social programs and invest in our diversified economy to allow people to adjust to the way our economy works today. I mean, Vaush, don't you think there are some moderate conservative populists who aren't really fascist but ultimately just want some kind of universal safety net? If they would be voting Democrat. Because Republicans take away social safety nets like relentlessly every time they're given the opportunity to effect one. So no, they wouldn't be a conservative. If they actually cared about that, they wouldn't be like a conservative. If they were moderate, then they would recognize that Democrats are more likely to get that across. They could be misinformed, but I'll be honest, guys. All those Republicans who are like, oh, well, I'm actually not racist and not sexist, and actually I'm pro-worker, just I can't stand abortion, you know? You know what? Fuck them. Fuck you. I don't care. Fuck you. I don't care. I'm sorry. I don't give a shit. Abortion has been legal in this country for goddamn near 50 fucking years, and you people are still whining over it, okay? Holy shit. I don't care. Quit holding back the entirety of the fucking country because you're mad you lost a Supreme Court decision.
The Republicans who want some sort of social welfare stuff, they don't trust the government to enact it responsibly because they've never dealt with things responsibly before. So, of course, the amount of people who approve of, like, Medicare for All is going up, and, like, a lot of right-wingers were, you know, they liked Andrew Yang, a UBI guy who wasn't hyper-partisan saying he's left. He was just kind of a guy that just had these good ideas. So, with abortion, there was I think a senator or some sort of actual official who was saying that, you know, we'll have the baby and then we'll see what we want to do from it then from there. Talking about like termination after it's been born. Yes, there is a limit to when it should be considered a life. Women should have the choice to get an abortion if they don't want to. Of course, they're not going to be happy. So yes, women should have the right to choose with their own bodies, but once it gets to a point like in the later months, there should be a cutoff point. It's like you should be responsible enough if you know you're having unprotected sex that people who could get an abortion in the later stages, like I understand there's also some exceptions, but you can't blame people for being against that. Like it's just a natural human instinct to want to preserve life, and killing babies in the womb is a problem for people, and I don't know. I have my own beliefs on that. I'm not even trying to tell you my opinion on abortion right now. I'm just saying that it is reasonable for people on the right wing to that be a big issue for them, and them to vote for Donald Trump over it, who they believe is going to make rules on abortions tighter rather than a social welfare program get implemented that they don't really trust the government to run. And so I guess that's it. I'm gonna wrap it up. I like Vaush, and I like a lot of the stuff that he advocates for, but sometimes he defends Antifa too much and calls everything fascist, but he's a good man. Thanks for checking out the video. Sorry if I was skippy, or I don't know. I'll leave links to all the clips I reviewed in the description down below. Thanks for checking out the channel.